Welcome back to Wounded on Sixes. Today we're going to be reviewing a team's doubles list for an upcoming tournament we have going. We're going to break down the list, go over our strategy, and why we picked each unit that is in the list. We're going to start with the Tau side and then move over to the Tyranid side. So first up, we have a Ethereal. This Ethereal is going to have the Unity through Devastation enhancement because Ethereals have now been updated to do the greater good. He's a great target for this because he's going to give any units that he guides lethal hits. He's a single unit, kind of just going to hang out in the back and guide in some of our Tau units to do lethal hits, which is really, really nice. He's small, he's got a 10-inch move, so he can get into places, he can do actions if we need him to, but most of the time he's just going to sit back. He also is a backup CP generator should we need him later in the game. Then we have a unit of 5 Vespid. These guys are fantastic for positional scoring. They have built-in uppy downy. They're not super great on the damage for a 5-man unit. They have a decent gun, just not enough shots. They only hit on 4s, so we're not really looking to do damage with this unit as much as we're using to score with them, have them come off the board, deep strike where we need them to score a lot of secondaries, which is really nice. Then we have 2 units of stealth suits. These guys are just our main observer units, providing buffs for the greater good, rerolls on hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 as well. They have infiltrate, not that we infiltrate with them a lot because they're kind of valuable. We don't want them getting clipped in the middle of the board, but you know, just the workhorses of the Tau Codex. Next, we have a Piranha. The Piranhas are pretty good. They give us something we're missing, which is speed in this list. They have 2 Seeker missiles. They also have a fusion. So they can move really quick, and they can also be an anti-tank target should we need them to. Kind of underrated target here. And then they're also a good, you know, for the greater good observer unit once they expend their payload of Seeker missiles. Then we have a Ghost Keel. Ghost Keel's one of my favorite units. Just really good utility here. Lone up, stealth, infiltrate, and because we're bringing the Cayune detachment, we do have the ability to pop them back into strategic reserve and bring them where we want, which is really nice. So there's a lot we can do with the Ghost Kill. It's got a lot of utility, and it's really hard to kill too because it has 2 stealth drones to ignore some saves there. So I continue to sing the praises of the Ghost Kill because it's just a pretty damn good unit. Then after that, we have 2 Riptides. One will have the Ion Accelerator, one will have the Burst Cannon. I like to bring the Burst Cannon because it gives me a differentiation of weapon firepower. You know, between the Ghost Keel and the 2 Riptides, if you're only bringing the Ion Raker and the Ion Accelerator, you're only getting 6 shots a suit. This gives us 12 shots a suit. Bring in the Cayune later in the game. That could be really nice with the sustained hits too, so I really like that. But, you know, the Riptides are awesome because they're hard to lock down. They have a 4-up invul. They have a 2-up save. Their hit roll can't be modified. They can fall back and shoot if they want to. They're excellent at screening. They're excellent at kiting your enemy's army. And they're pretty decent damage dealers as well. And I like to tank shock with them because it's a great way to finish off something you couldn't kill in shooting. Rounding out the rest of the Tau list, we have a Skyray gunship. This is more of a personal meta choice. There's a lot of scary flying units in our local meta, so the Skyray's there to take them down. After playing a couple of practice games, we realized that we needed some long-range firepower, and the Skyray just kind of matches the kind of units we're expecting to see out on the field. Moving over to the Tyranids list. So starting off, we have a Swarm Lord, and he's going to be with a unit of Tyrant Guard. This unit here is just to be a brick wall. This is the unit that we like to put into the center of the battlefield and try to tank shots with, as well as just try to blend things up. The Tyrant Guard aren't super killy, but they do have a pretty good save profile, and the Swarm Lord is pretty good. I mean, he's a pretty good blender. They all have twin linked, so they can make their shots really, really effective. And they're a hard unit to shift. That's why we try to put them into the center of the battlefield and force our opponents to try to deal with them. We then have a Biovore. This guy really just kind of sits in the backfield and shoots out spore mines. Those spore mines are great for scoring proximity secondaries, but they're also really good for move blocking. The Biovore itself doesn't move very far, but can help to screen out our backfield, which gives it a pretty good amount of utility. Then we have a Lictor, kind of the same reason why we're bringing the stealth suits. This guy can infiltrate, he has lone op, he can come in off the side of the board, he could start on the board in the game, he can go around and score, he's hard to target, he's a small base model, so easy to get him in the nooks and crannies, and we can do a lot of action secondaries with him because he's got an OC, and that's really what he's here for, is for scoring. We have a lot of units built in for scoring. Next, we have the Tyranid Warriors, and this unit kind of serves as an objective, a unit to take back objectives, to blend up infantry that may be sitting on an objective. They definitely don't want to get charged, they want to be doing the charging, but they do come with a lot of attacks and the ability to wipe a medium to light infantry unit right off an objective, which is something we don't really have in the list, so that's why the Warriors are here. They move pretty quick. And while they may not have the most staying power on the board, they definitely have a place in this unit for taking an objective and maybe holding it for a turn for us. Rounding out the rest of the Tyranids, we have two Maleceptors. These guys are the bread and butter of the Tyranid part of this list. They're really tough. They're T11. They have a 4-up save. They have a -1 to hit aura within 6 inches of them, and a -1 to wound if you're below half strength in 6 inches of them. They're really hard to shift. They're really hard to tank. The 4-up invul makes them really, really hard to deal with. And the T11 changes a lot of math, especially for light AT weapons that are wounding them on 5s most of the time because of that T11. So really impressed with the Maleceptors, and again, they're hard to kill. They do not shift. You can run them up in the board. They'll start debuffing your opponents, and your opponents will have a hard time removing them because of the 4-up invul and the T11. They're just fantastic for tanking out shots like that. In terms of the strategy for this combined doubles teams list, when we did a couple of practice games with the Retaliation Cadre, which is a list that I premiered on the channel a couple of weeks ago, we noticed that there was a big problem between the Tyranids and the Tau, in that the Tau were very hyper aggressive, hyper damage focused, but didn't have a lot of staying power, whereas the Tyranids kind of want to play a more grindy game because they just don't have the same kind of damage output. So what we were noticing is that our opponents would focus down on the crisis suits and then deal with the less damage dealing Tyranids on their own, which was not really helping us in the scoring department. So what I decided to do is I decided to change to a Cayune list, which makes us much more grindy. It naturally makes us want to hide our Tau units in the first 2 turns, or not really expose them in the first 2 turns. That's where the Ghost Kill comes in really well, because it's got lone op, but a 36-inch gun. You can kind of take pot shots from the backfield while still kind of staying behind. And then because we have the Wall of Mirrors stratagem, we can just pop them out and put them back into strategic reserve and bring them back where we need them to. So, that kind of flexibility that we have in Cayune is kind of why I made the switch, because I kind of wanted to match the durability and the grindiness of the Tyranid so that both sides of the list are working on the same strategy instead of one working on one strategy and another one working on another. So that was a big part of it there. As for the Tyranids, we're going with the Invasion Fleet, and a lot of that is because of the flexibility you get with Invasion Fleet. You can get sustained against infantry or lethal hits against monsters and vehicles. So, every game we get to look across the table, see what's there, and then make a determination. 9 times out of 10, we're going to be taking the lethals on monsters and vehicles, just because we don't really have the volume of attacks that you would expect for an infantry killing side of the list. But the Tyranids Warriors can do that, and so can the Swarm Lord. But 9 times out of 10, we're taking those lethal hits. But, because of that, we have a very grindy type of list here. And, we're mostly focused on secondary scoring. A lot of that has to do with some of the special stipulations that our tournament is going to be running for this doubles tournament. It's actually going to be using Adepticon 2025 team doubles tournament rules, which do have a couple of special mission rules where they're mostly centered around units from both parts of the army, like being on an objective to control it or being on an objective to sticky it. So, you need to have, there's a lot of coordination when it comes to scoring primaries and holding objectives in this doubles tournament. So because it's a little bit more difficult to score primary, we're really focusing on being able to score as many secondaries as possible, because sometimes, and especially in this format, it's almost easier to score secondaries than it is to hold a point and have the primary. So that's why we have a lot of scoring pieces like the Lictor, like the Vespid, like the Ethereal running around doing actions, picking Wall of Mirrors and uppy downing our Ghost Keel to get him into different spots. It's all about being able to consistently score our secondaries, using tactical secondaries, obviously, because it's just way better than fixed for here. So that's really what we're focused on because of those stipulations. And so far, so good. I mean, we've had a pretty fair amount of success. We kind of are the kind of list where we're coming back in a game. Usually turns 1 and turn 2, it looks like we're really far behind. And then turns 3, 4, and 5, we're just scoring every secondary we can because we have so much built-in utility and we have so many units that can kind of just tank an engagement, can just kind of sit and fight and have our opponent, locked in combat or locked in a firefight with us and being unable to score. Where they have to focus on trying to kill our units, we can focus on staying alive and scoring units. And that's kind of where this is. We're just trying to grind our opponent down and force them to try to kill our Maleceptors and our big suits, which are really tough, have invols, have stealth drones, have high toughness, and are just hard to move. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, force opponents to deal with very hard to deal with units. We're using our smaller units to score all around the board, moving them in and out. And then we also have units like the Swarmlord and his Tyrant Guard to kind of just sit on an objective and force our opponent to try to deal with them. And, if they can stay locked in combat for 2 or 3 turns with our opponent's like best melee threat, then, the Tau are going to go to town because they're not going to be threatened. They're going to kind of sit behind some of these bigger monsters and just keep firing. And it's super effective, especially with the Maleceptor Riptide combo has been really, really deadly and really hard for our opponents to deal with because they need to have a good shooting piece and a good melee piece that can, and still has to deal with the 4-up invols between the 2 units. So it's worked out to be a pretty good strategy so far, and I'm really impressed with it. There's a lot of redundancy here with the CP generators between the Swarmlord and the Ethereal. There's a bunch of infiltrate. There's some move blocking shenanigans here. There's uppy downy shenanigans here. We can do a lot, and we can force our opponents to make really hard decisions where maybe they're just selling out for some primary and not scoring any secondary because, maybe they're not building their list out to do a lot of secondary. This list is here to win in the late game, score those secondary points, and slowly grind you out. And in a teams doubles game, it tends to be a lot more strategic. You have 2 heads working on the same problem. So having a more grindy list set is kind of advantageous because the games will go longer. And like I said, primary scoring is a little bit harder in team doubles because of those stipulations. So we're really looking to sell out for those secondaries. So this is the list. We may make some changes. I'm going to feature another list here on the channel soon that's a little bit different. That's kind of in the running for a list if we don't take this one. But let me know what you think about our Tau Tyranid list. Go ahead and like the video if you haven't already. Please share it with your friends. We're trying to get our sub count up. And if you could, please subscribe if you haven't. We're almost to 500 subs. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and being so supportive. I love to hear all the comments people are leaving. Keep on leaving them. And make sure you come back for more Wounded on Sixes.